so much you can't comprehend. And when you see it, you don't think it'll end. I'll take everything you gave me. I'll wear it so everyone can see that you left more than the eye can see. They'll see your seven legacy. Everybody just look up tonight. You'll see that everything is alright. See, the world's got a halo. What is it that really we know? We said love, love's all mine. You're mine.
Hi, you guys. Welcome back. This is Richard Sachs from Lost Arts Radio, and I'm glad to be with you again today. We're going to be working on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean today with our guest, Mark Steele, and we're going to be talking about 5G and some particular things that he's doing that are relevant to everybody who's aware of the problem with this subject. And, you know, the vast majority of people still aren't, actually, and I think that stems back to the fact that we're trained from birth to absolute trust in authority figures. And they've been telling us, you know, that all these things are approved and safe, and so many things in our life that are government certified as safe are actually completely the opposite. And that's an issue because we have this emotional programming that it's just too threatening to consider that. But if you don't consider it and learn about it and act accordingly, then you have the negative consequences of it. And it's actually turns out better in the long run to be brave enough to find out what's true and what's not true and base your actions and your understanding on that. One of the big areas that this is true in among many right now, that, you know, our response to which will determine to a large degree the fate of humanity and the rest of the world, is the area of frequencies, which you don't see. You normally don't smell them or taste them or any other of the five senses. You don't pick them up that way. But they're very powerful. And there are positive and negative frequencies as far as their effect on the human body and other living organisms. And right now there's a huge proliferation of a certain kind of synthetic frequency that's being used in the communications industry, the telecommunications industry in particular. And we've had a gradual increase of always these things being sold for convenience and speed and availability, universal availability of communication that we've gotten used to with cell phones and so many other things. But there have been a growing number of people and some professional researchers and scientists that have pointed out the effect on the type of frequencies that are being used in communications and smart meters and radar guns and NexRad facilities and things like that have a negative effect on the human organism and on all other life, down to insects and trees and everything. And it's imperative that this gets learned about by all of us right away, whether we're emotionally brave enough or not. We need to get that way quickly, because right now we're in a rapid, explosive expansion of these technologies, and they're coming right to your house, right outside your house, with the new type that's called 5G. And this is an opportunity to review what that means and see what Mark has put together as something that could be done to maybe prevent some of the bad effects of this happening. So welcome, Mark, and thanks for giving us the time. I really appreciate it. Should be interesting.
It's thanks, and thanks, Richard, for having me on the show. So we can talk about I'm going to get it right out there, the existential threat to humanity from 5G. I'll explain, right. But
Why don't we start with that and assume that we're talking to the audience, the people in it, that are just finding out about this issue. I mean, what's it about? Why is it important? Why is it negative for humans? And wouldn't that have been tested already and approved or stopped by government agencies?
Well, let's start off in the 80s when 1G came along. So you had 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, something completely different. I'll explain that. So basically, 1 to 4G is telecommunications, 5G is a basic weapon system. All right, that's the difference. Don't let anybody try and tell you that 5G's got anything to do with communications for humans. It doesn't.
Well, yeah, we've been told that now we can download 5 movies a second, and it's going to be incredible.
They're probably talking about 5 gigahertz, which is a telecommunications signal. This shows a deception of the industry. All right, this shows a deception. 5G is not 5 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz is a communication signal and not 5G. That's the difference. 4G was telecommunications, obviously very sophisticated, high downloads for internet, etc. 5G is something completely different. So what I'm going to explain to people, because that's, off the get-go, I like to say that. But what I'm also going to say, do your own research. Cognitive dissonance, this is so unbelievable. It is absolutely incumbent on people to do that research. Absolutely do not believe one single word that I say. All we're going to do tonight is paint a picture, and I'll give you some information. I want you to take that and use it. Do not believe a word I say. And the reason I say that, when you start to do your own research and wake up, you'll find that this is absolutely terrifying. I say that in all my talks, and the reason I say it, this is so far away from your normal understanding of the world that you live in. It is absolutely crucial that you do your own research. All right, so that's number one. I like to get that off the bat. Because like I said, I do know about cognitive dissonance, and a lot of people find it so difficult to understand. So it's really important, do your own research. First and foremost, let's talk about what 5G is. 5G is a number of technical products. It's not one thing, it's a number of things. And the first thing it is densification. Densification just means more, a lot more. So more 1G, more 2G, more 3G, more 4G. Where 5G really becomes different is its application antenna design. You mentioned something before, Richard, about standards. There are modicum of standards that basically, not exactly what you could say are correct, but there's a number of standards in up to the 4G, where 5G is also different. It doesn't have any standards.
Is it true that the G is what we're being told, that it stands for generation, and that people are being told this is the 5th generation, in other words, implying an improvement in the telecommunications technology being given to the public?
It's generation. And the 5G system, what really makes it different, there's been no regulatory, it doesn't apply. I say in IRP guidelines, there is no research, zero, that shows that this technology is safe. And the reason for that is because off the battlefield, it's a weapon. It's like me turning around and saying there's any safety data for a 7.62 round for shooting at a human. This is how ridiculous this thing sounds, but that's why we're going to have to explore, and people have to do their own research. Like I said, do not believe anything I say. So we've got all of this technology. We've got all this technology, and it's being sold by industry about faster downloads, better, quicker. And like I said, the 5G issue is something completely different, and that's why it's extremely important. People most certainly have to do that own research. In fact, there's a lot of information out there from a number of other sort of people The reason why they try and keep me to one side is because I'll just tell you how it is. 5G is a weapon. There's nothing more, nothing less. The antenna design is actually phased array radar. So it's radar off the battle space. So where you know a number of troops where they're coming back to, into their cities where they're committing suicide, they basically got brain injury. They've got brain injury from this microwave radiation because it's a focused signal where it actually sweeps the battle space. They're called phased array, but it's actually where you have what's called a steerable beam of energy. It's just basic energy in air. Now obviously if I steer that energy beam and focus it at a target, you can see where I'm going with this. So it's microwave radiation, it's a focused beam, and obviously it sweeps the battle space millions of times a second. I mean, it's the perfect piece of equipment if you want to interrogate the battle space. So what people have to understand is, why do your government think it's correct to roll out a technology that can target acquire and can actually fire a signal, what's called a direct energy weapon, DEW, all right? So it can actually fire a signal at you. Now, people will come to this and go, yeah, I don't get that. Go and have a look at Bloomberg. Bloomberg at the Olympics were testing DEW weapons on wild boar in the jungle. This article was in Bloomberg. So go and have a look. And what it actually says is shoots and spews rays. What it means is it actually focuses a collimated signal, microwave radiation signal, at power density levels, I can tell you now, that can harm you. And what they were doing, they were target acquiring wild boar in the jungle and then shooting them. Actually shooting them with a signal. Now obviously this weapon has been kept from out of the public view for many, many years. I mean, we're going back quite a number of years, back into 1940s during the war, where this technology was developed. It was taken to America under Operation Paperclip. It was developed in Stanford and other universities in California. So they know only too well what the capability is of this equipment. And then obviously it was manufactured and built in China at a very, very low cost, because some of this equipment is very, very expensive. But if you've got a very sort of low-paid workforce, then you can start to produce it en masse, and that's why it's ended up on a street near you. So 5G is, number one, densification means more. That's a technical parameter. Number two, it is antenna design. And number three is its frequency. So where we've had frequencies for telecommunications, to get more of this information out there, more of these interconnected devices, they've had to open up the spectrum, because obviously what you don't want is too much chatter, too much confusion within that space. So they've had to open up the spectrum. And how they've opened up the spectrum, they're using battlefield spectrum, and then they're starting to use some of the higher frequency waveforms, because you'll hear the mainstream narrative about 5G is it's all about these, these 35 gigahertz, 60 gigahertz. Well, I'm going to tell you, the baseline for 5G is actually, it's what's called its blanket coverage. The blanket coverage for 5G sub-gigahertz. This is why my radar was popped up, because I knew that on sub-gigahertz long-range radar, and obviously my local council had rolled out this, what I'm going to tell you was a scanner, a target acquiring scanner system on top of these LED streetlights. A small antenna with a high gain dielectric lens, the dielectric lens at the top, so the high gain allows you to scan its environment. The dielectric lens on the top actually allowed you to focus a signal at a person. It's a weapon. So I've actually had it up with a weapon fitted on the light system outside my home.
Mark, when you say a lens, I'm picturing the, and wish we had 10 hours to go into the details of this. Maybe we can do some future installments. But just for the moment, when you talk about this installation on top of a light post, and you've got the frequency generating mechanism, and you have a lens, and you're talking about those, implying that they're two separate but coordinated pieces of the equipment, most people think of a lens as a piece of curved glass. What kind of lens is that what it is?
It's very, very much like that, but it'll be another material. So it could be glass, but ABS, some sort of printed on lens, very exactly what we're talking about. They call them dielectric lenses. People can go and have a look at that. You can go and have a look at the dielectric lenses. And not only that, because this information is actually available on the internet. Go and have a look at Brunderman weapons. All right, so do some research, do some Brunderman weapons research, and go and have a look and ranch about microwave radiation weapons. You'll soon come across quite a bit of information, all in the public domain. This is in plain sight, where you'll be able to see this type of equipment, not complicated.
They're probably assuming that most people, even if they saw it, wouldn't really understand it, so they don't care that it's out in the public. But I'm not meaning to stop your train of thought here. I just want to make sure each step that you're presenting is understood. So when you say this is the previous generations were telecommunication systems, although they obviously weren't good for human beings either. But now this is a new step, and you're saying this is instead of communication system, this is a weapon system. Are you saying that it's not going to also be simultaneously used to speed up telecommunications?
No, definitely not. The communication, I'll put this into perspective. If I had a mobile device, so you've got a signal, we've got a collimated, what I call a collimated signal, so in layman's terms, a bit like a laser, all right? So we've got a dielectric lens up here somewhere, and I've got a signal that wants to talk this. Let's pretend this is a 5G phone, all right?
Okay.
So it's downloading info. So we've got an antenna up here with a dielectric lens, and it wants to send a very high densification signal to this device. Now, if the phone's like this, I haven't got a problem, have I? Yeah, there's not a major problem. If I then want to introduce it to the other side of my head, and I put that densification signal through my head, well, brain injury is going to be the least of your concerns. Now, Motorola have already tested, I've got the data test for these antennas, and I'm telling you now, they are lethal. Motorola's just tested their 5G phone, burnt the recipients, the people who were testing it, burnt their face. Now, a burn from microwave radiation, people go, oh, that's not very nice, but they'll just think it's a burn. What I'm going to say is that is a class 1 cancer-causing radiation. We know that because the recent MTP study, and that's a National Toxicology Program study, $24 million was actually spent on a research project basically to show that the radiation from this is your 2G, 3G phone, doesn't cause cancer. And it did. So the research was actually set up to prove that these devices were safe, and what they came back was with the exact opposite. That's also supported by the Ramsini Institute. That was a 10-year study that absolutely supports. These are class 1 cancer-causing radiation emitter. All right. So your smart TV, your smart devices in your home, all emit radiation. Your smart meter, all emit radiation. All pour microwave radiation into your environment that will and can cause cancer. And obviously, what we see from the epidemiological data, see massive increases in cancer rates across the whole of the West. You've got the medical community scratching their heads going, oh, what's all this? Trying to blame diesel cars. But I can tell you now, it's your electric car. Anybody that sits in an electric car can tell you the international regulatory guidelines only apply to small, short bursts of this type of radiation. 6 minutes, 30 minutes. So 30-minute immersion in an electric vehicle doesn't equate to somebody driving around one as a taxi or somebody going 3 or 4 or 5. And I know that in America, people drive a lot further than what people do in the United Kingdom. It's only a small island. But I mean, in America, I mean, it's nothing for somebody to drive 4 or 5 hours in a vehicle. Well, if you drive 4 or 5 hours in an electric vehicle, you are outside of the regulatory guidelines. So guidelines don't apply. And not only that, you've got autonomous vehicles coming to a town near you. Right. LiDAR on the top of an autonomous vehicle. It's battlefield interrogation equipment once again. It interrogates its environment and actually fires what's called a LiDAR, which is a cross-laser radar system. You know, I mean, we're talking class 1 laser, not really the most dangerous thing in the world. However, to other road users, you've got 3 mirrors in your car. You've got 1 central mirror, you've got 2 side mirrors, you've got somebody behind you with a class 1 laser firing into those mirrors directed at your eyes. And that laser, if I shone a class 1 laser, normal lasers, class 1, so you'll get, you know, pen. You see them, people use them in offices for pointing things out. So you've got them in red, blue and green. Now, if I shine a blue or a green or a red laser at you, your eye does what's called saccades. So as the laser hits the back of the eye's really clever, and it vibrates at the back to try and protect the retina. Now, but if I come up behind you in an autonomous vehicle, and I've got a class 1 laser, but it's in a part of the frequency that you can't see, your eye doesn't know. And I've actually had witness testimony from people who've told me that they were, you know, riding a bike, and when they were riding a bike, they saw some vehicle come up behind them with one of these LiDAR systems on, got off the vehicle, and then felt extremely sore eyes, where one guy in particular who ended up going to his ophthalmologist, and he was bleeding in the back of the eye. Now, these technologies are experimental. I know from product development, I've been in research and development for over 30 years. I've been in product development for a significant number of years, and obviously all products, as you said before, Richard, have to fit within a certain framework of tests and standards. Well, I can tell you now, nobody's tested these vehicles and the emitters, the amount of radiation they emit, either from the LiDAR or the other signal systems on the road. And if they did test one vehicle, how do you test that on a motorway when you've got 20 or 30 vehicles within a close proximity? So this autonomous car issue is a serious risk to health. It's a risk to other road users. And because you can't see this radiation, nobody is actually aware of the risks. And we're not being told. Government's not telling us. In fact, what they're doing, they're giving organisations and companies licenses to test this experimental technology on top of us. Now, what I'm going to say to people, that's in breach of the Nuremberg Code. It is illegal. It's a human rights crime to test any experimental technology on humans until it's been fully tested and appraised and fits within a number of regulatory guidelines. And that's the reason, if I brought a product to America, let's say a car or a tyre or anything, and it didn't pass the Department of Transport regulatory guidelines, I'd go, well, first and foremost, you'd have the Department of Transport breathing down your neck, going, we want the standards, we want to see the data on the back of this product, you've put it on our roads. And if you couldn't provide them with all of the relevant documentary evidence to show that that passed these particular tests and standards, you get a massive fine. In fact, what the Department of Transport would do, they'd tell you to remove your product from the USA. And then what they would do, they would fine you. And I know companies that have been near bankrupted by their products coming into the USA, stating that they were Department of Transport approved, and then eventually were found not to be, and those companies, the Department of Transport, went after them. So how do we get ourselves into a situation where these, what I call killer technologies, because that's what the Valley call them, killer tech. How do we get into a situation where you've got this killer tech, head-up display systems, you name it, autonomous cars, all this sort of equipment, 5G, rolling out without any regulatory guidelines that are as we know, as of the 7th of February 2019, the Senator Blumenthal was actually told and totally dismayed in the Senate hearing where the industry admitted there is no research, there's been no safety research or data to show that 5G is safe. Now, I know why Blumenthal asked that question, because he knows, as I know, that this equipment is from the battle space. The reason why there's no safety regulations around it or surround it, because it would fail. If I was to test any of this equipment, it would fail. So it would fail the current regulatory standards. In fact, what is absolutely appalling, you have ICNIRP, a bunch of criminals, and I'll tell you why they're criminals. Like, these are supposed to be scientists. What I'm going to say, there are thousands of papers and tens of thousands of papers that show that the non-thermal microwave radiation has a significant detrimental biological effect. These characters at ICNIRP only look at the thermal effect, so basically they're looking for the burn, what I call a cooking value. So what they say is, as long as it doesn't cook you, it's fine. That is completely
it's declared as safe. One question I didn't quite understand as you were explaining it, you said that the previous Gs were telecommunication systems, and this one is different. It's a weapon system. So if they get their way and they roll out the 5G system all over each of our countries and all over the world, will the new 5G weapon system also carry telecommunications, or is it only a weapon system? That's one of two questions.
It's the issue that you have to machine, yes, it's a communication system, but not for humans. And the reason for that is because of the antenna design. If I put you in between a higher data focus, what you're doing, you're increasing the energy to get the data packet down it. That's going to be pretty risky. So, is it going to be dangerous? I'm pretty damn sure it is. To think that it's not going to be, and actually rolling it out without the safety standards, is illegal and unlawful. And unfortunately, what's happening, that's exactly what our government's doing. Governments are rushing to roll this technology out. That's what we're seeing in the UK. I'm not so sure about the US. I think the US, there's been some interesting presidential information put out recently about EMP, about these electromagnetic pulse radiation weapons. Yeah. What I'm going to tell everybody today, because let's just do the full reveal, I've never spoken about this before. If I had billions of these antennas right across the country, smart meters, all the IoT, right, and I actually pulse electromagnetic radiation, because these systems are totally hackable. The main operating systems are totally open to anybody, to hack into. You don't have to be a genius to hack into them. They're already compromised. We know that, and I can explain that to people. The US military's WIN-T, which is the battlefield totally integrated system, it's already been compromised. And the US military are now decentralizing their systems. Now, if the US military can't control their battlefield interrogation system, which is WIN-T, the whole integrated weaponry, where it talks to all your different assets on the battle space, if they can't control their system, then how's your local authority or your local city going to control a 5G kill grid? And if I pulse if I set all those off at a pulse rate, you can see what I'm saying. So the president, fortunately, he's put something out into the public domain. I'm hoping and praying that it's what I believe it to be, his understanding of what 5G really is.
I hope so too, and there's a good sign in that all of our media, the conventional media, is attacking him from all sides of the political spectrum, saying that it's so ridiculous to try to protect against EMP. And we have news hosts that are saying, why is he worried so much? He's probably mentally unstable. And, they're doing all these different attacks against him. And usually that's a sign that it's something really important and positive.
He's extreme. He's absolutely. I think Donald's. We get the whole mainstream narrative about him here as well, and obviously I'm not a mainstream type of person, but it's absolutely appalling what they say about this guy. But it actually it tells me he's a little bit of a poker player, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, it's not that he understands everything; it's that his attitude is honest, that he's there to try to help the country and the world. And that's unacceptable to the power structure.
Well, I think...
Because if he does learn about these things, he might actually act on them.
Yeah, well, I think what happened when Donald Trump went to... when he went to paradise, and he basically said, well, we've never seen anything like this before, and we need to get to the bottom of it. Well, what I'm going to tell you, if I fire off an EMP in your home, if your home is full of smart devices, and I fire off an EMP in your home, believe us, the whole thing, because what's actually going on there at Paradise, and I want to explain this to people. I watched a few videos online where I saw direct energy weapons imagery. It was real. It wasn't fake, it was real. I could see them. But what I also saw was, because I'm pretty interested in this whole subject, the direct energy weapons, most direct energy weapons do not operate in a part of the frequency that you can see. So I'm looking at these images where I'm watching direct energy weapons basically attacking buildings in California. I'm thinking that's quite interesting, because from my perspective, that would be like assassinating JFK and using a tracer round.
Yeah, exactly. But the effects of even if those pictures were fake, what was interesting in California, not to take us totally off the subject, but I think it's related, is that in areas where they ended up getting rid of the residents and then changing the zoning so they could not come back, so they could do more of a transition to Agenda 21 high density population control, is that buildings were burned, and right next to the vaporized building was unheated plastic and plants that were not charred at all. So something really unusual was done there, and the temperature of those fires was the temperature to melt steel, and that's not a normal forest fire, house fire, or anything else.
Well, I'll explain it. Right. If I pour microwave radiation in any environment, I'm going to start to break down the fabric of a building. All right, and if let's say I've got 20 or 30 transmitters, 100 transmitters, because you've got thousands of these, tens of thousands of these smart meters transmitting. You've got what's called cross-wave frequencies. Now, the issue with cross-wave frequencies, you can potentially get what's called some unintended consequences, because these are things that are unfathomable. You couldn't, from a mathematical perspective, if I had 10 antennas in a small block, specifically set out scientifically, I could probably work out what the cross-wave issue could potentially be. But if you start to put transmitters all over the place, then, it's a bit like chaos theory. It's very, very complicated. You wouldn't be able to understand. And if you see specific frequencies, you can start to see dissociation of molecular bonds. So you've basically got all this energy pouring into the environment. By the more smart meters and more equipment that you've got, more IoT, you've got all this microwave radiation pouring in there. So it's breaking down the fabric, you're actually heating things up, you're basically gasifying, any sort of hydrocarbon-based materials, you could gas them off. Consequently, there's a potential there, if you get an ignition, and this is humans included, where they would turn to ash, they would just whoosh, you wouldn't see any, you wouldn't be able to identify people, there'd be nothing left. They would just basically turn ash, same as what you see in the bottom of a crematorium. Right,
but how, I follow that, but how would you get the really strict demarcation between the vaporized building and the untouched plastic bottle lying on the ground next to it. That's not normal.
Well, it's like the images of the trees. The images of the trees. Obviously, the fire was so ferocious, it burns everything up so quickly, and the trees around the buildings are actually earthed. So they're taking the energy from the smart meters and all the IoT, and they're taking it to ground all the time.
Okay.
So when the fire goes, and that's why you get that total implosion. So it's buildings that are basically got some insulation. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting, aluminium. Many want us to do this experiment. Don't blame me, but put a little bit, well, no, I haven't said this because of America. Don't put a bit of aluminium in your microwave and do not switch it on. And do not, well, you can see what happens, but I'm going to tell people not to do that because that would be pretty interesting. If you look at the insulation that's in buildings now, you've actually got an aluminium sheet down one part to reflect the sort of thermal energy inside a building. So if I actually fire enough microwave radiation into that, and then you get a takedown, let's say I attacked a 5G transmitter, I can scan your building, and let's say you've got an air conditioning unit that's charged with propane. I can take that device out. So I take that out, or let's say accidentally an element blows in your your cooker or other. The next minute you've got a surge. Smart meters don't have surge arresters. They don't have surge arresters for a reason, because they need to send a signal to a transmitter, not the ground. So they take the earth off. Absolutely appalling. These designs are lethal. Meters have surge arresters for a reason. It's for safety. So they've took the surge arrestor off, replaced it with a transmitter so it can talk to talk to somebody. So basically they can spy on you and scan your home and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. But consequently, what they've done, they've left your home at significant risk.
Right. Yeah, there's been a lot of fires started by smart meters, and interestingly enough, when that happens and the smart meter burns up, if it's separated from the house at all and like it's on a post on the outside, very often the utility company will very quickly come up, take the meter away, so there's no evidence that it started any fires. And typical procedure. But you're talking about much more than just the system that powers the smartphones. You're talking about the whole smart grid as part of the same overall danger, right?
SMART, Secret Militarized Armaments and Residential Technology. That's what SMART stands for.
Say that again.
Secret Militarized Armaments and Residential Technology. SMART.
That doesn't sound very human-friendly. I've also heard that, a lot of people might say, well, we have to have this technology or else, we couldn't answer the phone. And what I've heard people saying is, and then your life would end, of course. Obviously, everybody knows that. But I've had people on the show talking about other types of frequencies in the realm of scalar technologies and things that could have been used instead if it were to be designed safely for humans and other life forms. Is that true in your experience?
It is absolutely true. I've got quite a number of inventions, and I invented a head-up display system that was safe. It mitigates the optical radiation hazard. And then you see lots of technology companies who develop these screens, focus radiation. Optical radiation, as we know, is a hazard. Anything that emits it has to be fully risk assessed. That's the law. These devices with focus and magnifying glasses, where they're used as retinal displays. If I was to build a weapon system, sight system on a piece of military equipment or other, I would operate in the 560 nanometers. That's why weapon sights are green. It's less biologically active. It does have a few issues, but it's not lethal. It's been risk assessed.
For the person that's using it, you mean, right?
Well, it's risk assessed before you. Well, you don't want to kill a pilot. Well, you don't want to harm a pilot. You don't want to put a pilot in with a weapon sight system and then damage his eyesight. I mean, some of them do get their eyesight damaged, but it's mainly because of the amount of optical radiation coming off their screens. That's a bit of an issue that they have. And also hypoxia. The F-35 helmet, you know, the design's just absolutely crazy. I mean, you've got this helmet with a proboscis on the front. If you fire a pilot through the canopy with that proboscis, you're going to snap his neck. I mean, this is unbelievable. But it's because they need to have these sight systems so they can protect the pilot when they're going in to take out, you know, some of the sophisticated secret weapons on the battle space. That's why I use arm, anti-radiation missiles, by the way. It's the first thing you go in, take out your radiation weaponry. You've got to, because if you don't, then obviously you cannot really move around. And we're talking about sophisticated battle space here, not so much attacking, you know, third world countries. We're talking about, you know, adversaries who've got the equipment, China, North Korea, Russia, and people like that. So that's just all part of the strategic sort of battle. And that's why I know so much about this, because obviously I invent waveguides, optical radiation systems, basically as weapon sight systems. So I had to know about what the weaponry looks like and what it's all about to come up with that. And what actually happened, we actually had a number of attacks on the company, because obviously there's another agenda, and I'll call it again, killer tech. There's a number of technologies that basically will harm. And I couldn't get my head around that, because why do you want to build technology that harms your customer? You know, to me, it's absolutely bizarre, because you're not going to have many more customers. But this takes us back to what really, you know, what is the real agenda? What, you know, what's really going on here? Because we've moved away from the law. We've moved away because the law and standards are inextricably linked. So we've moved away from the standards. That means we've moved away from the legal system and the law. So there's got to be an agenda. I do not do agendas, I do the science. But what I'm going to say is there is most certainly an agenda to kill. But it's not about killing a number. This is about the destruction of the human race. Yeah. Because I've looked at a number of these technologies, and I've looked at some of the power outputs. And we're talking about, you know, if we blanket covered the whole of the USA, all with 5G, right, which would be pretty toxic. You'd kill millions. Millions and millions would die. Genocide, what I'm talking about here. But they haven't done that. They're building these systems with capacity 75% more than what they actually need. So I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on here? So here's a really big reveal, I believe, because it doesn't make any sense. And I have looked at some of the technology, and I have looked at some of its focality, so we can focus in the vertical. And at first I thought satellites, over-the-horizon weapon systems, because obviously you can't punch things off ionosphere. Too much power, you may punch a hole through it. That would be very good. So if you've got satellites in there, you can actually reflect that weaponry back down to ground. So you could subdue a city, you could subdue a population, you could harm them, you could kill them. So I'm thinking over-the-horizon weaponry here. But now I'm pretty sure that the amount of equipment that's being deployed, this is about taking out the ionosphere. And if you take out the ionosphere, we're really talking about Armageddon here. We're talking about taking down the whole of biological life on this planet. So basically terraforming it like Mars. Right. Because nothing else, you know, when I've looked at the numbers and I've done a bit of background research into this, I'm like, absolutely, this is just, it you know, it takes me a lot of time to, and I do know the technology really well, so I kind of get it. I'm still trying to computate this in my head about why, who, and it leads me to believe that without doubt now that there's a spiritual sort of element to this rollout.
Yeah, that's right. Money's being used at the lower levels to motivate people to do what they want. But at the top levels, they already own the money system. So it might be appropriate, too, just for a minute to put in, since it was my fault, really, we neglected this in the beginning, Why don't you just say at least a little bit about your background and what even got you to look at this whole issue and what got you involved in it? Where were you coming from?
Where I started as a young engineer. I've had a really, really interesting background, and I ended up at a secret facility. Well, I ended up at a facility, nuclear facility, where there was a secret weapons site. So, and some of the equipment we worked on there was high RF sort of systems, and these are the sort of things you need to put on the back of an Arctic. This is like a sort of large truck. You wouldn't be able to put that sort of equipment now. You can put it into a suitcase because everything's come down
miniaturized, right?
Small. I saw a weapon the other day, actually a hand weapon with an element with about 100 elements in the end, I would suggest, because of the size of it, and it just looked like a normal firearm, about that big, something you could actually shoot on the battlefield.
Right.
So this equipment, so I did a little bit of that, and then I left there. It was only a 2.5 year project, and I can't talk about that because it's covered on the Official Secrets Act.
Right.
So I can't talk about that, but obviously I can tell you the site I was at, and so that's not breaking anything, and I'm not telling you what the project is, and I would never betray confidence. And then what happened, I then left there, went into the oil and gas industry. I had a couple of businesses, I had a few businesses. I was in security, I was in another couple of business and engineering company, and then I ended up building some subsea weapons rigs. It was a BEA Marconi project. It was torpedo ahead, so I started getting involved with that. But my interest in the whole science bit, there was a guy, I'll not name, a nuclear physicist I met early on in the weapons site, and he sparked my whole interest in, there was more to the universe than what I could really grasp at the time, and that set me on a journey. I'd already woken up when I was a very, very young boy, because I used to see, the deja vu thing. You go, oh, I've seen that before, type of thing. I knew something else was going on. That was really, I was quite young then, and so I was always interested in things. Never been religious ever. I went to church when I was a young guy. Totally rejected the whole thing. So I wasn't like, church religious type of guy, but I'm absolutely sure now, because of what's happened in the last few years, I've got that whole spiritual thing going on, where it comes from, how, why. But that was because I started inventing things. Where do those inventions come from? I started to see helmets, I started to see weapons systems, and and start to be able to understand, because obviously if you can use your imagination, my imagination is absolutely unstoppable. So consequently, right. That's how I can imagine, that's how I know what's going on. So I knew something underwater had happened. In my, like I said, my background, I've got a number of patents, like quite a few, because I've patented stuff where it hasn't went anywhere. If let's say I patent something, and so I've got an idea, I'll do a little bit of a feasibility study, then you patent it, then you go out and you look for the resources to develop that patent out over. If in the event after 12 months you haven't actually got to the point where because patents are very expensive, product development's really expensive, always takes 3 times as long, costs 3 times as much. Right. If you don't get that resource in, there's no point pursuing the patent, because then what happens, it drops into the public domain, and what you don't want is that patent going into the public domain. So what you do is pull them. Well, this is really interesting. I was encouraged to go to a carbon capture and storage conference in Leeds Armoury. A lot of the big hitters were there, BP, Marathon. So obviously you've got all these assets in the North Sea that they can't afford to decommission. So another little project to start re-injecting carbon dioxide into the well forms is basically, it was a bit of a scam. So anyway, I'm there and I thought, that's quite interesting. Anyway, I thought, well, I know how to fix this, because I knew about covalent bonds, I knew about frequency, and I knew about how you can pour enough power density at certain frequencies and pulse rates to disassociate the molecular bonds. So I thought, hang on, I'll come up with an invention. So anyway, I comes up with this invention, basically a carbon cracker, I called it. And anyway, I went on to Strathclyde, did a feasibility, had a chat with a few professors there. It absolutely had legs. So consequently, I wrote up all the patents because I'm a patent writer as well. So I know how to write up patents. So anyway, I write up a patent, gets it filed. We couldn't raise the money, and the reason why we couldn't raise the money, we did speak to all the right people, couldn't raise the cash to do it because they weren't interested in carbon cracking. What they were interested in was the scam of re-injecting it underground, all right, because that would save having to pull this $37 billion asset in the North Sea out the North Sea. So there was a bit of delay there. That's what it was really all about. But the fact I patented it, right, I knew because of the feasibility study that was carried out what the equipment looked like. You know, these radiators, cool up, because obviously you're going to pour a lot of PD in there, a lot of power density, a lot of energy in there, and at a certain frequency. And I'm absolutely positive that the equipment I see rolling out across the US here is in fact aligned to those patents. So what I'm seeing rolled out on top of telegraph poles in the US at close proximity to people's homes are molecular reactors. They are not telecommunication systems at all. So,
well, will they keep the lower G systems running to cover the telecommunications needs while the 5G is just for the weapons purposes?
That's what it's starting to look like to me, Richard. The 5G, these radiators, they're built so that you bring the air as you pour the energy in, it sucks the air through the bottom of the fins system and then blows the let's say the damaged air, the gas out of the top. Now, one of the things at 60 gigahertz, and people can go and do this research, go and look into it. It's 60 gigahertz. 60 gigahertz gets attenuated in air. What I mean by that, it gets stuck in the oxygen molecule. So basically, just
right. I've heard that it's chosen as a frequency because of its interaction with the oxygen molecule.
Is
that what it looks like to you?
Well, for some inexplicable reason, we've got one of the biggest telecoms companies in the UK, and I don't know what it is in the US, but it's called O2. And I'm a great believer in this, in plain sight. Now, that might stretch people's imagination, but I'm pretty positive about, and we've got that as a matter of fact. 60 gigahertz. There's no use at all for a telecommunications signal, and the reason for that, it doesn't travel in air. It doesn't travel in air. It gets stuck in air. So why would the FCC, Ofcom we have, these regulatory bodies are allowing 60 gigahertz to be used, which will damage the oxygen molecule. They'll damage the oxygen molecule.
In fact, it may be the process of damaging the oxygen molecule that uses up the energy it would need to travel farther through the air.
Exactly. Well, it damages the oxygen molecule, it gets stuck in it. But if you've got the right pulse rate frequency, you can disassociate the molecular bond. And if you break that molecular bond, you end up with oxygen atoms. They are then attached to oxygen molecules. That creates O3.
Not O1, because the O1 attaches to an O2. Right.
So the O2 immediately, it attaches to the O2 immediately, and then what happens? So you've ended up with O3. O3 will kills humans at 50 parts per million, and it will kill all biological life.
Ozone, basically.
It's ozone. That's what it is. Trioxide. Ozone.
Okay. Now, just in view of the fact that we don't have a lot of time left, let's kind of switch over from that to how does that connect into what you're doing in the locality where you live and what you hope to accomplish in that test, and also keeping in mind a part of this subject that we really haven't talked about, which is, I think this year, 2019, they're planning on launching the first of the satellites into the orbit around the Earth so that they can radiate everybody every square inch, even if we never put up any ground transmitters.
Like the ground transmitters, the satellites in air are basically a reflection. It's all they're just a mirror in the air. Right. There's not a great deal of power output from them. I mean, unless
so you're saying those would depend on the ground transmitters to actually do what they're doing?
To cause a great deal of damage.
Okay, so if you could stop the ground transmitters, there'd be no point in the satellites, in other words.
Absolutely. Well, it's all ground based. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to organise ourselves around that. The space satellites. I'd like to actually have a look at one. If I could see one, I'd have a better.
Right, but now we're told that the 5G transmitters have a short effective transmission distance. So how can a ground-based short transmitter reach a satellite in space? That doesn't sound very sensible.
Yeah, because they're telling lies. It's sub-gigahertz. The main frequency for 5G sub-gig. All right, and sub-gig's long-range radar, and that's why my radar was up straight away, because I thought, hang on a minute. I thought 5G, because they're putting these transmitters out, and then when I realised it was sub-gigahertz, I thought, well, that's...
And sub-gigahertz has no problem with the distance, right?
Absolutely not. And travelling at great distance through the urban environment, there's absolutely nothing will stop it.
So why do they even need the high? Well, the high frequency is powered by the low frequency, and then the high frequency tears up the atmosphere, basically. Absolutely.
Well, they're opening up the spectrum at both sides. And like I said before, 5G's densification, so it's more. And so the scam is, we'll get more of this, and we'll push the spectrum out, because obviously they've got to tell the technologists that this is going to work because we're going to use this part of the spectrum. I mean, people go on about the higher frequencies and how much more dangerous they are. Well, I'm going to tell everybody, the lower frequencies are just as dangerous. These are experimental technologies that we have got absolutely no data to show that they're safe, and they are absolutely in breach of the Nuremberg Code and a crime against humanity. These are indictable offences. These companies are committing indictable offences against us as we speak today.
They are, and I've noticed that there are thousands of laws on the books now that do the same kind of violation, and nothing's done about them. And in fact, I think it's in the Code of Federal Regulations in the U.S., it says that you absolutely cannot do any potentially lethal experiments on the public, unless, of course, it's for research, science, the benefit of humanity, and this long list of things that it's okay to do those experiments on. And that's in the laws. So
we can prove absolutely without a shadow of a doubt that this is absolutely at harm.
It is harm, but they say it's just for research, so it's okay.
Well, Nuremberg Code states quite clearly you cannot test any experimental equipment on humans without a full prior knowledge and
informed consent.
And also, if that technology's ever been shown to harm an animal in a laboratory, then you can't at all. So we now know that this technology absolutely gives animals in the laboratory cancer. Yeah. So how can they still carry on rolling it out? I mean, it's because we acquiesce. We just say, oh yeah, it'll be okay. Well, guess what? It's not okay. People have to wake up, smell the coffee, and we have to act. These characters.
Yeah. I totally agree. There's one point that people bring up that I don't agree with, and that's that they say, well, none of this is safety tested. Well, of course it's safety tested. That's why they know it'll harm you. It's publicly not safety tested. But if it weren't shown to cause harm, why would they waste all this money, rolling it out? But I don't want to take up, there's so many interesting points here. We need to let people know what you came up with as a test case where you live in the locality there that might be replicated to other areas if it's successful.
What I'm going to say to people, obviously, Mike, when I brought this to the attention of the local authority, they just basically tried to shut me down. I had police officers at the door, threats. I then got arrested. So they agree that it's valuable what you're doing, or they wouldn't bother with that. Yeah, exactly. Well, of course, yeah. Well, just all that's happened. They've ended up dragging me through the courts. I've got a civil case where they're now trying to send us to prison. They fabricated evidence against me.
What are you charged with?
It's a committal for they're committing us to prison on the back of me saying that I've threatened some counsellors, which I haven't. I mean, the reality is, I'm not that stupid. I'm not the sort of person that threatens anybody. I'm just not that type of guy. I'm not that stupid. Okay. But they have stated that I've threatened them. They're basically just fabricating evidence against me, because what they're desperate to do is to shut in this 5G story. And the reason for that, they know as well as I know that it's an indictable offence. And they've rolled this technology out on top of my countrymen, women and children, as the US government and technology companies are rolling it out on top of US citizens. And it is absolutely illegal and unlawful. And what we need to do is engage our legal teams and get it stopped. One of the things I've done recently was set up a crowd fund. It's a crowd justice, so that we can go on the offensive. Obviously, I've been attacked legally. They've took me in. I mean, obviously, I've had the threats, and I've also had car windows broken, and we've had some physical threats and stuff like that. Right. I'm not concerned. Those things don't concern me, because I'm a big boy. They don't frighten me at all. And the reason for that is really important. The reason for that, I know what this weapon's capable of. This will kill everything. And that's why I've thrown all caution to the wind and said, well, come on, bring it on. This is like somebody stepping up outside your home with a weapon. And that's exactly what it is. I know that's what it is. So consequently, I've got no fear, and I'm on the offensive. So the criminal case, we've got this 5G stop the crime. It's let justice be done. Let justice be done, though the heavens fall. Have a look at it, because that's really interesting. That was a saying that was a judge said it. It's basically a legal sort of term that was used for the emancipation of slaves. Because what they basically said happened in the UK, and the judge said, I mean, he was told by government, we can't stop this, the economy and all the rest of it. What actually happened after the emancipation of slaves? The economy actually grew. It did exactly the opposite of what the government said it would do. And what I'm saying, and the reason why we've used that strapline, is because we're speaking to the judicial system. I'm speaking to barristers and lawyers and judges, so that they understand, if we don't stop 5G, they will die. Their children will die. Their grandchildren will die. This is not going to be good for anybody. It's going to kill everything. And that's why it's really important. I've got no doubt that we'll win this. But what we have to do, we have to embolden people. We have to get people to wake up. This isn't my fight. It is our fight. Fortunately, I uncovered this because of my expertise in this particular field, but it was only by chance. I could have lived 20 miles, 5 miles down the road. I wouldn't know about this. How it came to me, I had a couple of neighbours knock on the door. We had these new LED street lights fitted. What I'm going to tell people, the LED street lights, AMA, ANSIS, Health Protection England, all these organisations, right, have already stated that these technologies are risky to children. Well, I'm going to tell you that blue phosphor coated, they've got no diffuser on, they are lethal. Absolutely. We've got the data. Spain, Barcelona, I've just carried out a test. The LED streetlights that are rolling out, these are blue phosphor coated LED streetlights without a diffuser that cause glare. That optical radiation is a class 1 cancer causing radiation, and the recent study in Barcelona that was carried out by a number of institutions in Spain is showing a doubling of breast and prostate cancer in the 3 year the exposure. 3 years exposure. What I'm going to tell everybody, from 3 years exposure, if you've doubled the breast and the prostate cancer, the epidemic's 15 to 25 year out. So you can imagine this LED street line is going to kill millions from the current exposure, not what's going forward, what's actually already happened.
And it's a long-term effect, right? So in other words, the idea is that people won't connect cause and effect because of the time lag.
And that's why they're trying to get me sent to prison, because obviously I know more about optical radiation than I know about microwave radiation systems. And that's the weaponry. My optical radiation systems, the defense.
Right. So, and the optical channel as a gateway to the brain, right? And affects the rest of the body that way.
Central nervous system. I can actually pulse modulate light at you. I can hypnotize you. That's how a hypnotist works. He gets light, hits him,
right,
bounces into your eye, and obviously a lot of people get hypnotized. That's why I wear protective eyewear all the time when I'm on a screen.
Yeah,
really important.
Very good idea. Wow.
Well, there's a number of weapon systems that were actually developed, pulse modulated weapon systems. I would go into that, but that's another story.
So you're implying that everybody should wear glasses when they're using a screen? Absolutely, without doubt. What kind of glasses? Anything that protects you from the blue phosphor coated. I wear these a lot when I'm out and about. These are iridium coated, just basic sunglasses. Nothing special, ABS plates. Right. And as long as I've got a blue iridium coating, that's the best for the radiation of the LED street lights. What about these programs that are for sale, like Iris, that will supposedly cut out the blue spectrum from your screen? We've got to really be careful about some of these things because it's all about balance. The problem that you have with the blue phosphor-coated LEDs that are rolling out in the streetscapes is you haven't got any balance. You've got a blue phosphor-coated, so it's a blue emission. Then you've got a 25%, 450, 460 nanometers, so that's why it's got that bluey haze. You know that harsh bluey haze that you see? It's got that bluey haze, and it's because it's not balanced. Natural light from the sun is absolutely larger amounts of PD. That's why it warms your skin. However, it's natural occurring, so consequently it's a lot more powerful. But it's natural and it's balanced, and exactly. There's not this unnatural pulse modulation. Where the pulse modulation of the LED streetlights, that's where they're lethal. Because they're trying to have people put LED lights in their houses too now. Well, if they're under a cover, if they're covered in the ceiling, they're not too bad because the light radiation actually reflects from another source. But if it catches your eye, that could be really dangerous. Well, it is really dangerous. I know it is. And that's why these street lights, you're driving along the road and you're seeing them on the motorways and it's catching your eye, that is absolutely lethal. Nobody's truly, when these guys fit these street lights, they're warned. Do not look at that light without protective eyewear. So when you really need sunglasses, it's at night, according to what you're saying. I wear them all the time at night. Actually, in the daytime, though, I can tell you from my research is that you need, at least indirectly, sunlight, for your eyes, too. And if you're always wearing eye protection, you're cutting out the good frequency from the sun, which is not ideal. Yeah, it's not ideal. If I get up in the morning, right, go out for a walk, and if the sun's shining, I always take the glasses off, get as much of that sunlight. Okay, yeah, so you're doing that. Yeah, I do that, yeah. Okay, so what do you exactly want to do? I assume it's in the town that you're living in. Is it a legal challenge to the streetlights, or what exactly are you doing? Well, what we're trying to achieve here is a test case, so we can take the local authority to court on a personal injury claim. Now that's quite interesting because obviously I'm trying to garner support from the legal fraternity, and these guys made a fortune on asbestos. Well, are still making a fortune on asbestos. Any sort of claim like that. So what I'm trying to do is encourage the legal community, the solicitors and the lawyers, to get behind this test case, this action. So then what we can do, because we've got the evidence, they've broken the law, we know the technology is not safe, we've got everything there, and we've also got a number of victims. So we run a number of these PIs at the council. That's a quick way to short circuit the illegal activities that they're carrying out. Because obviously what I'm trying to work on is the fact that some of these lawyers and barristers and judges are pretty greedy, and they made a lot of money off asbestos. A lot of companies out there who, if there's anybody who knows any lawyer firms, make sure they see this, the copy of this communication, get it to them, and because those guys can make a lot of money here, and that then drives the commercial sort of interest in what we're trying to do. And all I'm here to try and do, stop
5G.
So this is a lot like where they're taking the people who have gotten cancer from Roundup, are taking Monsanto and Bayer to court now, showing that, of course, Roundup caused the cancer. And they're actually getting judges who are not bought off by the system to say, well, yeah, it did. And they're, assessing millions of dollars against Monsanto, which is now Bayer. And it could be something similar to that with the companies and the cities that are authorizing installation of these LED streetlights, for example, and other sources of frequency emissions that hurt people. Is that accurate? I mean, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm trying to organise. I'm trying to engage the avarice of the legal fraternity, because obviously those guys, and with their connections that they have, I mean, we just had a whitewash of a case. I had local councillors come here to bear false witness testimony against me. I was found guilty of a public order offence. We've just been to appeal court. My barrister did a fantastic job. Basically got these people to lie under oath. Now, obviously, the judicial system has to understand what I'm saying is conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. The police are involved. The local authorities involved. Well, that's a big ask. So we knew we're going to struggle to get the right result. We didn't get the right result. This is really interesting. Even though they got their result, it was actually taken out of the media. So the media were all there, had the papers there, there was people taking photographs outside. None of that ended up in copy due to the fact that the state apparatus had realised that it doesn't matter what they say, nobody believes them anymore. They've lost all credibility. So consequently, they kept it out of the media. That's really important. And obviously the alternative media, we must come together to stop this crime. 5G is an indictable crime. We can prove that as a matter of fact. And this is where the legal people are being harmed and dying every day. We've got the epidemiological data, and I live in a very, very small place called Gateshead. Obviously, we've had a significant number of people who've died from this technology, from cancers, heart attack. These are under 75s, brain tumours, stroke. And where the council really made a bit of a mistake, they sent me information to say that they hadn't seen an increase since the rollout of this technology in this particular borough.
And you're focused on the LED streetlights for the moment, but I assume this could be spread to all kinds of these negative frequency technologies, right?
The LED streetlights are part of the carrier. They're the carrier for the 5G transmitter. So what they're doing, it's all part of a thing called soft kill. LED streetlights, if I change the pulse modulation, so you've got your local council, they're saying, what we're going to do, we're going to save some money. On a night time, we're going to reduce the light frequency.
Yeah.
We'll dim it. They say they're going to dim the lights. Well, by dimming the lights, what they're doing, they're making a bigger gap. It's a square wave. So what they're doing, they're making a bigger gap between the energy of the photon from the transmitter and the energy, the 450 nanometers, 2.5 electron volts in a photon charge. Your cell in your eye operates in the millivolts. It's a chemical process, obviously it's a millivolts. So that then starts into your skin. It causes, same as the energy in a how a microwave oven works?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the same with this. But what happens, this light travels under the skin, and it's stopping the cell backwards and forwards because oxidative stress, and we know that oxidative stress leads to cancer. And that's the reason why we know that the increase in cancers in Barcelona are due to this artificial blue phosphor-coated light emission. Because, all artificial light is not exactly safe. That's why optical radiation is a known hazard, should be fully risk assessed. They have not risk assessed these emitters, and the reason why they haven't risk assessed them, they'll fail. They will fail. If I take these LED streetlights into a laboratory, put them next to some animal test, it'll do absolute, well, it'll just kill them. They'll get cancers and all sorts.
So listen, since we're almost out of time here, we've got about a minute left. What's the timeline on the legal process that you're planning to institute in the town?
Well, we're on it now, so I suggest anybody who wants to get involved, because this is all about skin in the game. The more people that get involved, we've got this crowd justice site up. Get involved, have a look at it, because this is something, the template can be used in your locality. Because the law, basically, I mean, obviously American law is slightly different, but the template, the science, the documentary evidence is all there. We've got all the science. I've got the technical background, which is a problem for the state apparatus, because obviously I can go. And they've never disputed who I am or what my background is, because obviously I've got a lot of patents. And where patents are interesting, I have to understand right at let's say the level that a lot of people don't get what technology is really all about.
Where do people go? I mean, to follow or to support what you're doing or to stay in touch with it? What kind of website, Facebook address, or what do you have?
There's a website called Save Us Now. So it's www.saveusnow, all one word, .org.uk. But what I'm going to say to people, set your own organisations up under the same symbology. And the reason for that symbology came to me, same as where my inventions come from. I think it's pretty spiritual. But what I'm going to say to people, this is about the rule of law. All do Democrat, Republican, we've got Conservative, Labour, red, white, blue, black, white. This isn't about that. That's all divisive. The other things that are here to deceive and to divide people. What we have to do is come together under a legal framework, because the law, absolutely, the law is here for the benefit of mankind. That's simple. If a law is shown that it's not in the benefit of mankind, you repeal it. What we're about here, get away from the division and let's get behind the rule of law. And that's the whole principle of Save Us Now. It's all about the rule of law. We're going to all get behind the rule of law, because it's basically just something written in a book. It's like rules and it's like playing a game of Monopoly or a game of, and obviously people will cheat and they get caught. They didn't stick to the rules. That's a problem. Problem we have with the law at the minute, it only applies to the little guy. What we have to do is we have to reinstitute it so it applies even more so to those that told themselves in power. And the little guy's got a little bit of a bit of a buy when it comes to that. But most certainly the law has to apply at the very, very top. And unfortunately, for some inexplicable reason, that hasn't happened for quite a number of years. The law applies to everyone. No one is above the law. And the law is God's law. That's why the Queen of England, when she goes on her coronation oath, she swears to uphold the law of God. The reason why she does that is because if she didn't, she'd have no power, because it's real. People need to work out that this is real. God's real, absolutely, without doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. I can show you, I'll tell you, I would get up and do a talk on how I can show you from a scientific perspective. It always makes me laugh about scientists. Get these scientists, tell you about the Big Bang. The universe all just came into being in like a split second, and then you'll get some religious guy go, yeah, hang on a minute, well, God made the whole, the universe the earth in 7 days. And you get these scientists go, hey, these lot are crazy. God made the earth in 7 days. Well, what's more crazy? The universe came out of nothing in a split, in this blink of an eye. And
it's amazing coincidence. Everything's by chance.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to go, but everybody go to saveusnow.org.uk and support and find out about what Mark's doing. And Mark, I hope you'll come back and give us an update soon, and we'll stay on this with you.
I'd absolutely love to. And that's, thanks everybody.
Thanks for sharing everything with us, and we'll see you soon. Okay, so there goes Mark Steele, and I really appreciate him coming on and giving us the time to share the great ideas that he's got, and not just ideas, but action connected to them. And, sometimes people ask the question, well, we're doing all this spiritual work on internal levels, and it's very powerful and all that, and that's true. And that's what Planetary Healing Club is all about, or partly about anyway. But that's not mutually exclusive with doing things in the outside world. So whatever you are involved in, whether it's just, the people that you talk to in your own personal circle, or you're doing something on larger scales on the outside, your internal work makes you more effective on the outside. That's the way that they connect together. Excuse me. And Mark's motivation, as far as I can tell, is 100% pure, just to try to help humanity and life on our planet so that it doesn't get forced into extinction, which is the plan of the power structure right now. So I would encourage everybody to support his work at saveusnow.org.uk. Find out as much as you can about it. See if it would apply to what's going on in your local community, no matter what country you happen to live in. 5G is a global plan, and it's part of the smart grid. The parts of it that are already deployed are damaging to all life, as he mentioned. But 5G is apparently a big step forward for the destruction agenda, and anything that would help turn it around, stop it, and reverse the whole thing would be great. And it doesn't mean, as the authorities might tell you, then you wouldn't have any communication systems, or couldn't use your computer, or more importantly than everything, watch your movies and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that at all, because there are other frequencies that would work as well or better than the destructive ones, and those are intentionally not being used. So knowingly doing things that will harm humanity, as Mark pointed out, his theory is that those are not only indictable crimes, but they can be actually successful in court. So take a look at what he's doing, saveusnow.org.uk, and I hope that will give you ideas of other ways that the same general theme of direct liability to the people involved in those organizations can be used to stop and reverse some of the destructive agendas that are in progress. Anyway, I really appreciate your taking the time to learn about what Mark is doing and support it in any way that you can. Saveusnow.org.uk. Remember the free videos that we're putting up as much as we can during the week on multiple platforms. If those get banned, which they probably will eventually, unless the president starts doing something really effective about countering the censorship, if they disappear, find us at brighteon.org. That's brighteon.org. Or is it brighteon.com? I think it's brighteon.com. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. So brighteon.com. We've got a lot of videos up there now. A lot of the past shows are up there now. Archives are free. Keep up with everything that we're doing at lostartsradio.com. And also anybody that's interested in getting into the levels that we can't talk about freely on a public venue at the moment, go to planetaryhealingclub.com. Those are all .com. And I'm there every week, and we're talking about things you can do in your own life that transform your effectiveness on all these outer levels. So it'd be fun to see you there if you get a chance. planetaryhealingclub.com. Check it out. And in the meantime, we'll see you with another guest show in a week. And in the meantime, stay in touch. Any feedback or suggestions, questions, etc., just send them in to Richard at lostartsradio.com, and I'd be glad to hear from you. Have a good week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Introducing Lost Arts Radio Live, our new Saturday late afternoon, early evening 1-hour live stream show. This new show precedes our Planetary Healing Club, which starts at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. The Planetary Healing Club, which is not free and open to the public, but you can join for a minimum donation of just $10 a month. Our new live stream show, which is free, starts Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 Pacific. It can be accessed by going to lostartsradio.com/live. You can tune into our live stream from our Facebook page at facebook.com/lostartsradio, from our YouTube channel at youtube.com/lostartsradio, as well as both Periscope and Twitter at Lost Arts Radio. You can ask questions during the show by using the chat function on YouTube or make a comment on Facebook during the live stream. Once again, that's Lost Arts Radio Live, Saturdays at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. As of January 2018, the Saturday live call-in show is now an interactive video platform called the Planetary Healing Club. The cost is just a $10 minimum monthly donation, automatically billed through your PayPal account. Sign up at lostartsradio.com/club. The Planetary Healing Club is every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You get your link to participate in the show upon signing up as a member. Those shows are also archived as well for club members. Listen to our new shows with guests every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. All Sunday shows with guests have archives freely available on our website at lostartsradio.com. You can also find them at blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio, as well as our YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/lostartsradio. Mixcloud at mixcloud.com/lostartsradio. And finally, look us up under the podcast directory on iTunes. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/lostartsradio or on Twitter at Lost Arts Radio. Be sure to join the free Lost Arts Radio Facebook group as well. Just search for Lost Arts Radio Group within Facebook. You can also join our forum on our website if you want to interact with other listeners. We also have links to all of the great independent musicians whose music we feature each week on Lost Arts Radio. When you do your Amazon shopping, please use Amazon's Smile program at smile.amazon.com. And when you choose Lost Arts Research Institute in Sedona, Arizona as your charity, Amazon will donate 0.5% of whatever your order total is to Lost Arts Research Institute to help fund the building of the school and keep our radio show on the air. Please visit lostartsresearchinstitute.org for more information on the school we want to build. Be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter on our site under the Radio Show tab or right from the button on our Facebook page. Contact Richard at richard@lostartsradio.com or myself, Doug Diamond, at doug@lostartsradio.com. Thanks again for listening to Lost Arts Radio, and we'll see you again next week.
Did not want my sadness to ever show.